Hello, I'm Michael Mintz, and today we're going to be automating flight search while web scraping flight prices from various airlines, such as easyJet, Southwest, United, and El Al. And with all this information, you're going to be able to run these scripts in GitHub Actions, such as in the example here, where we have departure times, arrival times, and the price of the flight. And here's another example from Southwest where we've got the flight times, the number of stops, and the prices again. And here's a more advanced example where we also include the planes being used, the flight data, flight number, etc. So all the details that you could possibly want, as well as the flight prices. So with all this automation, we're going to be using a framework I created called SeleniumBase, which you can find on GitHub. And there's a popular feature within SeleniumBase called CDP mode, which is a stealth mode that lets bots appear human while controlling the browser with the CDP driver. And here's an example SeleniumBase script that basically web scrapes united.com for flight times and prices. You can see here we're going to go in, define some variables, and then click inside to set the origin, the destination, and then do the flight search, and then print out all that data. Here's another example. In this one here, you can see that we're going to close a banner first that appears, because sometimes websites make you accept cookies to continue. And then you're just going to input the data, such as the from location, the to location, airport codes, etc., as well as the calendar dates of when you want to fly. And then once we submit, it'll find those flight details, and then it'll print out that information. And here's another example here from Southwest, pretty much doing a similar thing. And here's a similar script with ll.com. So during this presentation, we're going to be flying to Paris on easyJet, flying to Chicago on Southwest, flying to Orlando on United, and flying to Israel on El Al. And as a bonus, I'm also going to share some photos from some of my recent trips to these destinations, and you'll be able to see some famous landmarks that you'll probably recognize, such as the ones you see here. So up first, we've got easyJet, and we're going to be flying to Paris. So let's do a live demo of that. I'm going to exit out of this presentation and do Python raw easyjet.py from the SeleniumBase CDP mode folder. And now we're going to do a flight search. So first we're going to close that banner, and then we're going to go into the from location and type London Gatwick for the airport. And then we're going to do to Paris, all airports. And then we're going to set the when time. And then finally, we'll click on show flights. And now it's going to collect all that data for the flight from London to Paris. And now you can see here in the output all the data that appeared for that flight with all the prices, which are in pounds, by the way, since it's using a British airline. And now you have all that data. So let's jump right back into the presentation, because now we're going to do a quick tour of Paris since we just came there. So the Eiffel Tower is a definite must-go-to place for when you're in Paris, because from there you can go see pretty much the entire city from the top. So make sure you take the elevator up, because that's a fun trip. And then you'll be able to see all the different areas surrounding Paris, because the view from the top of the Eiffel Tower is really nice. And also be sure to check out the Arc de Triomphe, because that is another major landmark in Paris. A lot of people go there. There's like a giant rotary that pretty much goes around it. And if you have the extra time, you should check out the Louvre, which is the famous museum with all the fancy artwork, such as here. You've got a lot of people gathered around a painting where a lot of people are gathered around a table. That's kind of meta in a way. And you might get a chance to take a selfie with a statue that's taking a selfie, so that's a cool highlight too. And you may want to check out the gardens around Paris, because they're quite beautiful. Just the plants are amazing. And the architecture here at the Louis Vuitton Foundation is quite stunning, so check out that if you have a chance. And you may even get a chance to see a magic show in Paris because they're known for that. So that's the end of the Paris tour. Up next, we've got Southwest Airlines, where we'll be flying to Chicago. So let's do a live demo of that. Exit out of here, and we're going to do Python raw southwest.py. And now we're going to run that script. We're going to see how we're going to type in the data we need. So we're going to depart from Boston, and it's going to set that. And then the script is going to put in MDW, which is Chicago's Midway Airport, which is a tiny little airport within Chicago. And now you can see that all the flight times and prices have emerged there. And now all that data has been outputted to the console. So you can see here the dates, the times, the number of stops, and the price. So let's jump back into the presentation because now we're going to do a quick tour of Chicago. So Chicago is a huge metropolis. There are just tons of buildings all around. And on the bottom side, you'll see there's a river there that goes through with also more fancy views of various buildings. And there's also a boardwalk that you can walk along because it's right off of one of the Great Lakes. So you're going to get some nice scenic views there. And the building architecture is actually quite stunning because there's some fancy designs in Chicago that you won't find anywhere else, such as this building here or that building there. Just lots of very cool architectural designs. And a must-see place in Chicago is this giant jelly bean that's kind of silver mirror-shaped. Basically has a huge reflection of everyone that goes there, and it's actually quite nice, and it makes for a great selfie shot, so be sure to check that out. It's definitely one of those must-see places whenever you visit Chicago. And if you have extra time, you may want to check out the Museum of Illusions. It's also pretty nice there. And Chicago, of course, is well lit up at night. The buildings look very shiny, so definitely check out Chicago at night too. And if you go to Willis Tower, you can take an elevator all the way up to the top and then stand on this glass thing where you can see the whole city. So it's pretty cool. And there are lots of cool statues all around town, like the wings. You can basically stand there and everyone thinks you're flying around because it looks pretty cool. All right, so that's the end of the Chicago tour. Up next, we have United Airlines, where we'll be flying to Orlando, Florida. So let's get started on the live demo for that. Let's back out of here and do Python raw united.py. And now, so we're going to go to united.com and do the flight search. So we're going to set the from location to be New York City. And then we're going to set the destination to be Orlando, Florida. Then we're going to click to do the search. And then you'll see that the data appears right here. And you can see the various prices. And then we're going to scrape that data and put it all here. So now you can see that we have nonstop flights with various times originating from the New York area. And then we'll be going to Orlando. And it even tells you the various planes you might be taking, such as a Boeing 757-200. And then it also has like the flight number details, so that's good. And then there are various ranges for prices, such as eco basic prices or just the regular economy prices, which can vary depending on which package you've selected. So let's jump right back into the presentation. And now we're going to do the quick tour of Orlando. So when you get to Orlando, you might find this giant golf ball. That is Epcot Center inside of Disney World. And it's quite a famous landmark. You know, makes great photos if you like go there and take some photos. It's nice. It does kind of look like a golf ball, even though you can actually go inside of it. There's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah, bring the whole family too, because it's a lot of fun things to do there. And you can even see this giant golf ball all the way from Japan because they have a Japan section at Epcot. And you can basically see the big golf ball from all the various countries, Like you'll probably be able to see it from the China section at Epcot for sure. And then in addition to that, you'll probably also see it in the England section or Great Britain section of Epcot. Here you have these popular red telephones that you can find throughout England, but you don't have to go all the way to England to see those phones. You can see them right here. So that's a nice little fun thing to do. And if you get tired of watching giant golf balls, you might be able to find a giant globe at Universal. It's the Universal Globe, and it's just a great place to be. A lot of fun things to do there. The globe is a bit smaller than the golf ball, but every different landmark is, to each their own. And if you get hungry, you can always check out the Minion Cafe because there's lots of fancy food there. And of course, minions will be making your food for you. And if that's not your style, you could also check out the Hard Rock Cafe, which is another popular food destination there at Universal. So check that out. There's a lot of fancy surroundings there, like there's like a river running through, and there appears to be some coliseum next to it, or maybe it's part of it, fancy trees. It does kind of look pretty fancy. And of course, at Universal, you can meet the whole Scooby-Doo gang if that's your thing. Scooby-Doo's gonna be there, so you might as well check it out. And of course, this is the castle at the center of the Magic Kingdom in Disney World. This castle is probably one of the most famous landmarks in all of Orlando. And it's great for, selfies and all those photos that you may want to take there. And it even lights up at night. There are all these like fancy lights that show there. And you might even get to see a fireworks show. And also be sure to check out the fountain by the castle because it is a magical fountain, so you never know what you may find. And if you ever get tired of Disney, SeaWorld is not too far away, so you can go there and check out the views there. And there's a little lighthouse there to show you that you're there. And there'll be lots of dolphins swimming around SeaWorld, and they'll be doing fancy tricks like standing on the water on their tail fins. You can even go up to them and see them up close and in person, because the dolphins are really quite intelligent. And you can even go swimming with the dolphins, as you can see here. And if dolphins aren't your thing, you might also be interested in the sea lions. And those sea lions are great at putting on a show, that's for sure. So that's the end of that tour. Up next, we have El Al, and we'll be flying to Israel. So let's do that demo here. Back out of that. Python raw ll.py. And we're going to go in, and it's going to go into the LL website, and it's going to set your departure date. So it's going to modify that, and it's already put in the Boston to Tel Aviv because you can set that right from the URL. And now it's going to do a search, and if it doesn't find flights on that particular day, there's a button that appears where you can find more available flights, and you can see here in this flight calendar all the various prices from the various days that you may go on your trip, and it'll find the best price for you with the algorithm that I've implemented. And now all that's going to be outputted here, so you can see that the lowest price from Boston to Tel Aviv is $1,412, departing on Sunday, March 30th, 2025, and the return date, Saturday, April 12th, 2025. And you can see all the various prices that it found and all the other data that it was collecting during that web scraping. So you can see here that you can use web automation to find you the best price. So let's jump back into the presentation because now we're going to do a quick tour of Israel. And whenever I go to Israel, I pretty much dress for the occasion. I might have my American flag on one side of me and my Israeli flag on the other. And when you get there, there's this Western Wall that's a very famous place to be. A lot of people go there to pray at the wall or to leave a note in the wall. Lots of famous things happening there. And you can get a great view of the Western Wall from the top of the building known as Aish Torah, where you can basically see the wall and the surrounding area with great clarity. And there's usually a lot of people at the wall, as I mentioned before, and sometimes on special occasions, people go dancing. You can see the guys have formed a little dance circle here, and meanwhile, the women have their own dance circle going. Everyone's doing their own thing. And sometimes it gets really crowded there, such as on this day, which is Yom Yerushalayim, which translates to Jerusalem Day. It's a big celebration where they celebrate the return of the Jews coming back to the wall, because technically they were displaced for a while and they didn't have access to the wall, but now they do. So they celebrate that, and usually it's an annual tradition. And here's me celebrating Jerusalem Day. And if you want to know more about Jerusalem Day, the people here in this photo from 1967, they're the ones who made it possible. They were paratroopers, they came in, and they reclaimed the wall. And here's just another shot of me at a Jerusalem Day celebration. And here's another shot of me where a radio talk show host decided to ask me a few questions from my trip to Israel. And also, definitely be sure to check out the food, because the food there is amazing. There's a place called the Shuk, and there's just all this delicious food there. And if you get a chance, check out some of the cafes. There's a special dish that I particularly like called the shakshuka, and it's basically some eggs mixed around in some tomato sauce with some spicings on it. So it's definitely quite a delicious dish, very fresh. And sometimes in Jerusalem, because it's a historic place, there are other historical events that happen, such as on this situation here, where they were opening the US Embassy in Jerusalem after relocating it from Tel Aviv. And you can see here on the left, this guy here, his name is Ari Fold, and he basically organized that particular event. So that is, how the Jerusalem Embassy came to be for the US. And of course, if you have a little extra time and you want to do some learning, there's a place called a yeshiva. Well, actually, there are lots of yeshivas all around the country where people can come and do some learning. And generally, the rabbis there have a great story to tell. So if you show up, you're going to be sure to have a great time learning. And of course, the weddings are also quite exciting. As you can see here, the guys are dancing on each other's shoulders. Meanwhile, the women might be off doing their own photo shoot, but note that those are two entirely different weddings. And the artwork around Jerusalem is quite nice, like all these umbrellas, everywhere. So definitely the artwork is very nice there in Jerusalem. And if you're staying at the King David Hotel, be sure to check out the afternoon tea time, because the tea there is wonderful. And when I go there, I usually visit lots of my friends who are there, because I know a lot of people there, so that's why I try to visit as often as I can. And you also might like to visit the Army base, because they do Army base tours, but generally, in order to get on an Army base tour, you generally have to be part of some other group that's going there, such as in this case where I went with United with Israel. It's a group that came to the Army base, and we basically celebrated Hanukkah while we were there. Quite a great celebration. And if you like the ocean and you like ancient ruins, there's a place called Caesarea, which basically combines all those things together. You've got like an ancient Roman theater, along with like ancient Roman ruins, and you've got the view of the Mediterranean right there. So it's quite a nice place to visit. And here's an up-close view of the theater there that's at Caesarea. And here in this screenshot is a view of Tel Aviv, which is a very nice coastal city with lots of things to do. And some of the architecture of the buildings is also quite nice as well. Here's the view from the beach. And there's also lots of flowers all over Tel Aviv if you're interested in flowers and gardening and that sort of thing. And if you like to run at night, there is a Tel Aviv running club that basically does night runs. And that's part of the Adidas Runners Club. So if you like to wake up in the middle of the night and go running, the Tel Aviv Runners Club might be the club for you. So that pretty much wraps up the tour of Israel. So definitely be sure to check out the SeleniumBase page on GitHub so that you can learn all about the various features and functionality and all about web scraping, bypassing CAPTCHAs, doing test automation. It's all here. It's right here on the github.com/seleniumbase/seleniumbase. So to be sure to check it out, and I'll see you all next time.